As a health coach, I have worked with my clients to achieve so many different health goals, from healing their hormones to losing weight to getting better sleep. And I know how overwhelming and confusing it can be when you're trying to get healthier. The first step in any health goal should be to know what is going on with your body, to identify what your body actually needs. That's why I always say test, don't guess when it comes to your health. Whether you're trying to improve your energy, optimize nutrition, or reach fitness milestones, LabCorp On Demand offers health tests designed to give you insights that will help you make 2025 your best year yet. I love LabCorp On Demand because it's so convenient for my clients. You don't need a doctor's appointment. You can just walk in or make an appointment at one of LabCorp's 2,000 plus patient service centers nationwide. And then you get notified by email when your results are ready, which I've seen be ready as soon as the next day. The tests are incredibly thorough. They offer over 70 tests meant to test hormonal health, nutritional health, and so much more. LabCorp On Demand is truly the way of the future because you can actually find out what is going on in your body to identify the right care plan for you so that you're not spending all this time and money and energy on vitamins and workout plans and things that your body may not need or what might not be right for you. And you definitely won't have to deal with that frustrating feeling of having these symptoms and not knowing why. Get to know your body this year and what it actually needs to thrive. Everygirl podcast listeners can get 20% off your first order with code EVERYGIRL at ondemand.labcorp.com. That is 20% off your first order with code EVERYGIRL at ondemand.labcorp.com. Make this the year that you actually get to know your body. One of the questions I get asked most often is how to reduce stress. Unsurprising, since I feel like we're living in a stress simulation sometimes. In addition to your typical mental health toolbox of things like therapy or meditation that work for you, I have another tip that may help to ease your stress physiologically at the root. I've been taking a natural, drug-free supplement formulated by nutritional psychologists called Ashwamedh for a few months now, and I notice a significant difference in my stress levels. I've also noticed I'm sleeping a lot better and that my mind races less at night. I love and recommend Ashwamedh because of its ingredients and the fact that it was formulated by nutritional psychologists. So let me break it down for you since I always tell you to do your research when it comes to supplements. Ashwamedh contains ashwagandha, an adaptogenic herb that has been used in Ayurveda for thousands of years, and multiple studies have found that ashwagandha can significantly reduce stress levels. Ashwamedh also contains two types of magnesium to help relax the body and mind. Low magnesium levels can also increase stress, by the way. There's L-theanine, which targets happy hormones to manage stress and improve mood. And then there's methylated vitamin B6. There was actually a recent study from 2022 that found that supplementing with vitamin B6 significantly reduced feelings of stress for participants. So, Ashwamedh packs in all of these ingredients that are natural, good for you, and well researched, so you know that you are actually getting the bang for your buck that you want. I love that Ashwamedh helps me feel calm, relaxed, and focused. Ashwamedh is exclusively offering the Everygirl podcast listeners 20% off your monthly subscription for first-time customers purchasing on the website. You just have to use code EVERYGIRL20, terms apply. So just visit ashwamedh.com now. That's ASHWAMAG.com to start your stress relief journey.
Why does making friends as an adult feel so
What
hard?
should I wear on a first
What the
date?
hell is a formal?
But that
Why
hookup
is
was
buying my
not
first
good.
home so
What do I want my
frustrating?
life to look like in 5 years?
We want to know too.
Since 2012, the Everygirl has been an online destination to help women around the world achieve the life of their dreams. Now, we're excited to bring you the same inspiring content with the Everygirl podcast.
Welcome back to the Everygirl podcast. We have an incredible episode for you today. Erin McGough, better known as Advice with Erin, is joining me today. This episode is packed with career and life advice that you are not taught in school. Erin has built an online audience of over 5 million devoted fans, all thanks to her incredible, relatable, and tangible advice. In today's episode, we are getting into the nitty gritty, the tangible action steps you can take to get your dream job or to make more money or just feel overall more fulfilled in your career life. Erin blew me away with her advice. We talk about how to be more fearless in your career, the surprising factor of work life balance people don't know about, why you should look at your salary as a base, and a lot of really great concrete tips to get a raise in 2025. This is one of those episodes that you will want to take notes or listen to it a few times. Send this episode to your work wife. Welcome Erin McGough to the Everygirl podcast. I'm always really interested in how successful people become who they are. So, what would you pinpoint that led you to become the successful person that you are now?
Oh gosh.
I know we're starting deep.
Oh gosh. Okay. Is this therapy? Did I schedule the wrong one? That's actually a really fantastic question. And I've never been asked that before. I feel actually incredibly privileged that I grew up in a home that really encouraged entrepreneurship. My dad's from Scranton, Pennsylvania. He grew up the son of a funeral home director. My mom was raised the single mom of a public school teacher in the Texas Panhandle. And they raised me and my five older siblings. They always told us to dent the universe, to like go out and do something in the world to make the world a better place. So they always really encouraged me to make a positive impact on the world. And that's definitely why I do what I do today. I just want to help people. And I saw that my parents did that while I was growing up. They would just always be so helpful to people. I think that just seeing that growing up is just why I do what I do today.
I love that make a dent in the universe. I love that. That's so beautiful. And you said you had 5 older siblings?
Yeah.
You're the youngest of 6?
I am. I am the final result. Yeah.
I am one of 3, and sometimes it feels like there's too many of us. So, like, what is it like to have 5 siblings?
Can I guess your birth order? I really like
Yes.
doing that.
Yes.
So
Oh,
you're
this
one of
is fun.
three?
Yes.
Oh gosh. Oh, you're kind of hard actually. I don't feel like you're the oldest. I think you're the youngest.
Okay, interesting. No, I'm the middle.
Shoot. We're at like a 98% success rate with that. I was gonna say middle, but for some reason you weren't giving middle child vibes. Anyway, okay, middle child.
Well, I'll give this to you. My younger brother acts very much like he's older than me, so maybe I give off younger child energy for that reason. I think that would make
Okay,
sense.
cool.
Yes.
I
Yes.
feel like youngest children tend to have podcasts.
That
Um,
honestly is probably true. I mean, it's true for you. Like, you're out here sharing advice and doing your thing, so it makes
yeah,
sense.
we just need some attention.
Yeah. No, literally, I always say that that's why I feel like that's why I am, like, seeking attention because I was a middle child and have middle
Mm,
child syndrome, but it makes sense, like, I know as the baby of the family, everyone else is, like, doing their own thing, and especially probably with 6 of you guys, were you, like, constantly fighting for attention?
More than 6 would have been tough. My parents did a very good job of making us and, I love having a lot of siblings because 'cause they're all my best friends, and we all do our own things, and we all text every day. We're very, very close. So, I loved growing up with a big family. I will not be having that many children. I don't know how people can even afford that today,
Oh my
but,
gosh, you can't. Yeah.
I loved it.
That's so much fun. So what made you start wanting to share career advice online? Like, I wanna know your career trajectory, how you got to where you are.
Yeah, it's so funny because looking at it from the outside, it's like, wait, this girl is giving career advice, but she doesn't work in HR. She doesn't have a PhD in organizational psychology. And it's like, yeah, no, I don't. And I think that's why I've been so successful. Since I was a wee tiny baby, I knew that I wanted to make films. I knew that they were a way that I could make a positive impact in the world. I love movies. I love TV. I just love that medium. So I went to film school, made a few documentaries. Honestly, my career was going very, very well. I directed a feature documentary and premiered it when I was 23. I got a Pulitzer
Wow.
Fellowship. Yeah, I was killing it, to be honest. I moved to New York City and then boom, COVID happened. All the work in the film industry dried up because we couldn't go anywhere or do anything. So I kind of like every millennial downloaded TikTok, immediately deleted it because I was scared, and then re-downloaded it. And I just thought it was really cool how the algorithm could pair you with these videos. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to make career advice that was specific to the film industry, where I was showing people, here's all the stuff you didn't learn in film school. Here's how to actually get on set. Here's how to manage your finances. Here's how to network. Here's how to make a proper portfolio. And people were just asking me, to make it more general. They were like, "Your career advice is so good." And I think it's because the film industry is so cutthroat and competitive, and I didn't have a single connection in the film industry. I had to claw and scrape my way through, that it just makes you really, really sharp. So I started to make my advice more general and talk about interviews in general and resumes in general. And anything I didn't know, I would just go out and research and talk to people who work in recruiting or work in HR and use my journalism background to distill all the information down into these videos. And then I love the challenge of taking these dry topics, how to make a resume and making them really like sexy, cool, and fun. My first video, it was how to answer tell me about yourself in a job interview. And it just blew up. And it was like, wow, there is a massive need here. And I started getting all these DMs from folks just saying, like, that really helped me. I used your advice in an interview and I got the job. However, I did not want to be an influencer. I didn't want my income to be reliant on people's opinions of me. That really freaked me out. I didn't like that at all. And so I actually continued. I was working at National Geographic and I worked there until 2022 when I eventually jumped ship. And now I work on my production company, film projects, and advice with Erin full time.
Wow. Okay. So it's so cool that you still get to kind of pursue every angle. A lot of people, especially nowadays, are trying to create content, trying to go full time creating content, but you have grown to a massive community of over 6 million viewers, which is crazy. What do you think has set your content and who you are apart and contribute to your success as a content creator?
100% humor.
Mm.
100% because, career advice tends to be it's either hustle culture, wake up early, cold plunge, get into job, or it's like listen to your authentic self, or it's an HR strategist talking about how it is from the company side. And that's great information. But, they tend to be pretty risk adverse and stick to the script. And then I come in here and I'm like, y'all, interviews suck, but here's let's make them suck less. And I think that relatability factor and the fact that like I have been there and as a freelancer, I've freelanced for over 25 companies across every industry you can possibly imagine. I've seen different hierarchies. I've seen it all. I've been there, but also running my own film sets and having to hire people and hiring people who don't really work out, having that managerial experience. I really get both sides of it. So being able to give actionable, like really tangible advice, but in a humorous way, I think has been the key to why people have chosen to follow me.
Yeah, I would say as a viewer, you don't really get your content anywhere else where it's so applicable and it seems so simple. Like it's like, "Oh, that's such a great tip. Like why didn't I think of that?" Rather than the girl boss era, especially for women. I feel like there's been so much career advice that feels either overwhelming or
Yeah.
doesn't feel realistic, and you absolutely have nailed whatever that magic sauce is.
Oh, well, thank you so much. That's the goal.
And I know you were recently named in Forbes 30 Under 30 class of 2025, which is such a huge deal. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
How does that feel?
Oh, it feels amazing. When I saw Chapel Roan was on that, I was like, "Oh my gosh, we're classmates." Um, so it's a huge, huge, huge honor. At the same time, I also know that now I'm part of this list that can cause people to feel a little comparison and maybe when the list comes out, I remember feeling a little bad about myself when the list would come out. So I'm also cognizant of like just reminding people that it's just one list. It doesn't mean that you're behind or whatever. It's a huge accomplishment. I'm very proud of myself, but also it's not everything.
That's a good point. There is something about that age of 30 that feels like I have to have my whole life together by the time I turn 30. The amount of people that actually feel like they have their life together, 0 out of 0. Like nobody actually feels that way. I'm sure people on the Forbes 30 under 30 list
Yeah.
still do not feel like they have all their shit together. And
Yeah.
so that's a great point, and it's amazing to be cognizant of that.
Yeah, it measures accomplishment before the age of 30. That's all it's measuring. It's not measuring
Yeah.
your happiness, your mental health. Even it's not measuring the sustainability of what you're doing either. As we've seen, a lot of people after they're on the list don't really sustain what they were on the list for. So I just try to keep people balanced, and it's not everything. It's just
Yeah.
one thing.
That's a great perspective, but still very exciting accomplishment. So I'm
Thank
very
you.
happy for you. Okay, so I want to get into all of your amazing career advice. I'm going to start big here because the number one question people want to know, I'm sure you get asked this all the time, how do I get my dream job? So, what
Mm.
tips do you have for someone to get the most fulfilling, successful career possible? And also, I want to know from your perspective, what does a dream job even mean?
Oh, it's a great question. There's a lot of debate right now about like, do dream jobs even exist? I think dream jobs, the phrase dream job is just a phrase that you use to describe like a job that you most days don't dread and that you wake up and you're like, yeah, my job's fine, it's fine. But the first thing that I encourage people to do is to get to know yourself. A lot of people actually aren't very self-aware and they don't really know what they want. They operate from a point of kind of just passively doing the next thing or doing what their parents want them to do or doing what they think is right. They're not very intentional and about getting to know themselves and what they want in their life. That's what I call career mapping. It's just being really intentional about what you want, where are you going. A lot of people graduate college and they get a job, they start to not like it, so they get a new job. They start to not like it and they get a new job. And that's kind of the cycle that you go through. But it's really important to be really intentional. Go climb a mountain or study abroad or do whatever you need to do to get to know yourself. Take personality tests and career aptitude tests. That's why I actually spent months developing my own career aptitude test for people to take. It's free. It doesn't cost a dime. And I just think they're really, really helpful for getting to know yourself because you can't really know what your dream job is if you don't know who you are and the things that you want out of life and what you value and not necessarily what other people value. Another thing that's important to take into consideration is that no job is perfect. Nothing in life is perfect. So you have to understand the pros that you can't live without and the cons that you can live with. So, for example, like one person might need to work remote, like they cannot go to the office. Another person, they're like, that's not something I want, but it's something that I can live with. So, you have to understand like what are the pros that you can't live without? What are the cons that you can live with? And then operate from that point of view. Otherwise, you're just going to keep running into the same issues over and over again. And then the last thing here is that you just have to start gathering data points. I mean, so many people just overthink their next career move when really most decisions in life are either reversible or they're fixable. So don't overthink, oh, should I go try this? Should I go try this? Our society makes us think that you have to be in a box and that you go from high school to college and whatever you studied in college is what you have to do in the real world. But in reality, there are no rules. You can actually do whatever you want to do. So gather data points, talk to people, and before you consider taking a career path, especially one where there's a lot of schooling involved, I would highly recommend talking to somebody who is successful in that job. So if that's like a lawyer or a doctor, whatever it is, and actually talk to them about their day to day. And not only just what they do, but ask them, what time do you wake up in the morning? What is taking vacations like for you? What's your retirement plan? Like ask them the realistic pros and cons before committing to something and really investing a lot of time and money into that.
That's such a good point of those like little details. If you want to be a lawyer, you think of being in the courtroom, you're not thinking of, well, what does my work life balance look like? What does it actually mean to show up every day? So, getting those little details is so important. I often look at a dream job as looking for a soulmate where there could always be something better. This person is amazing in every way, but they leave their socks on the floor. So, maybe there's someone else out there who is amazing in all the same ways and doesn't leave their socks on the floor. You could always have that mindset in a relationship, or you could focus on this person has so many amazing qualities that I love. I'm going to create my soulmate instead of hoping that I find them someday. And I think that that's very true for a job of like, you could be always like, well, this is the one thing that this job doesn't have. Maybe a different job would be better.
Yeah.
Or you can look at it like, I'm going to focus on how this is my dream job that I'm in now, if it feels good enough for you. So I think that's a really important reframe for sure.
It's just like dating. Finding a job is just like dating. I talk about that all the time.
It makes so much sense. Yes. Because it's like we have the same pressure. If it doesn't work out, we feel bad about ourselves. There's so much comparison. So it
Mhm.
makes so much sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like no person's gonna be perfect, no job is gonna be perfect, but those flaws are important because, okay, yes, they leave their socks on the ground. Is leaving socks on the ground a hard value for you? Is that a deal breaker for you? Probably not. And the flip side of them leaving their socks on the ground is maybe that they're not a controlling neat freak. And maybe that would be a deal breaker for you. So it's important to just kind of like take in everything with a grain of salt and be grateful for the things that you might originally see as flaws and reframe them. But then again, try to find the best fit possible and don't just justify bad things.
Yeah, it's finding that balance. The first tip that you shared was so interesting too, because I think a lot of people do have that experience of, sure, I'll sign up for this major in college when you're 18 years old. And then you're like, well, this is all I know is this random job in marketing, even though I would love to work at National Geographic or so. Like, you don't really know exactly what you want when you're 18 or when you're 20, when you're making these decisions. and then it propels the rest of your career. And I love the idea of kind of like getting to know yourself at whatever stage you are now, whether you are 18 or whether you're 45 and you're deciding I'm not happy in this career, I need something new. Getting to know yourself is so important. I also love what you talk about with career mapping. What are some of those important questions? What should they be looking at to pinpoint what they might want to do for their career?
Yeah, I think most people are actually really bad at getting perspective on ourselves. We actually don't see ourselves very clearly. We think a lot about what other people think about us and not necessarily what we think about ourselves. So, something that I actually really encourage, which is kind of counterintuitive, is to ask other people, is to ask people who you feel like really understand you. That doesn't necessarily mean your parents or even your friends, but people in your life who you've come across where you feel like they really love you and they really understand you. Just ask them. Say, hey, you know me really well. I'm getting this law degree. Do you think that that's going to make me happy? Like, do you think I'd actually be happy as a lawyer? And they might say, oh my gosh, finally, I've been waiting for an opportunity to tell you. You're going to be miserable. You don't like doing paperwork. You don't like confrontation. This isn't a good job for you. Your whole life you've talked about working in marketing. You've been a creative person. You always love the Super Bowl ads. Why don't you think about maybe getting into marketing or being a lawyer for an agency? You have no idea like how many people in your life want to tell you what they've envisioned for you. And again, don't necessarily go to your parents, but go to people who you feel like really understand you. Because sometimes other people, a lot of the times, other people can see us more clearly. And that's why when I actually instruct people when they do my career aptitude test to do it with somebody next to them who can help them answer the questions. Otherwise, your results aren't going to be accurate if you don't actually know yourself well enough to answer the questions.
That's a really good point. That's really interesting, and it's so true, and I think a lot of times we might think of, "Oh, these are our set of skills," and then someone else that knows us really well is like, "Wait, no, you have all these
Oh,
skills that are so much better." Yeah. So, let's say we know where we want to get to, but we just don't know exactly how to get to it. So, I want to know your routine or a routine that you recommend to set and achieve goals in your career. Like, do you have a 5-year plan? Do you do some kind of check in or journaling exercise every new year, every month? What is your micro detailed routine for setting and then reaching goals in your career?
Oh, yeah. So the metaphor I like to use is something that we use in documentary filmmaking, which is where you make really specific production plans and you think about everything, like every single minute of the day, and then you get ready to completely abandon them. So you're not attached to the outcome, but you're committed to the journey, is what I like to say. So you're not attached to this outcome, but you're committed to just enjoying the journey and to put a lot of thought into where you're going in the next 6 months, 12 months, 5 years, 10 years, but to not be attached to it. So if I was attached to what I was going to do, going to Sundance or the Oscars, I never would have started Advice with Erin during the pandemic. I would have just said, no, I'm laser focused on this. Meanwhile, Advice with Erin is my end goal. I wanted to make a positive impact in the world. And it turns out doing it through social media was a lot quicker and cheaper than making these huge films. So it's about remembering what your desired outcome is, that end goal. And I recommend people make a 5-year plan. Just have a date with yourself and envision what that ideal life would look like in 5 years. And then work backwards from there and think, okay, year one, year two, year three, how can I get to that? And readjust it every year. Sometimes you might think, well, I want to move to the UK and live there for the rest of my life. And then 3 years in, you're like, I kind of miss America. And that's okay. I think it's just important to take time to yourself every year to take stock of what's happened and readjust that 5-year plan into what's going forward. I think that's really, really important for everybody to do.
Yeah, to make sure that you're being really intentional. Again, it's like going back to like, is this really what you want? Or are you just kind of like mindlessly on this path that you were set on? Do you have any like New Year's things that you do?
I don't make New Year's resolutions, but I do pick a word and then I make it the background on my computer. And every day I try to do something that is in the essence of that word. So this year, my word was audacity. I wanted to
Ah,
have the audacity.
I'm
um,
obsessed with that.
Yeah, and I'll challenge myself every month. I'm like, I'm gonna have the audacity this month. I'm very intuitive about how I do things, so that allows me flexibility to operate within that framework. And to be fair, I do have a whiteboard with 6 goals written on it that I did
Okay, so
achieve.
you're setting goals. Yeah.
I am, but I'm not like I set one goal this year that it turns out 3 months into the year, I realized actually that's not really a good goal for me this year. That's more a goal for
Mhm.
next year. So it's okay. I scratch it off the board. It's just about, like I said, like you said, like just reiterating the intentionality of like making the goals in the first place, but not being like so heartbroken when you don't reach them, but just having thought. Self care is thinking about future you?
You are such a great example of what a successful goal would actually look like because your example of, you want to make a difference in the world. That's like your why, that's your end goal. And for a while you thought that was just being done in documentary films and there's another path that got you there quicker
Mhm.
and maybe easier. That's a really great example to remember of how our end goal can stay the same, but all the goals in between can be so different throughout our careers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You nailed it.
As a health coach, I have worked with my clients to achieve so many different health goals from healing their hormones to losing weight to getting better sleep. And I know how overwhelming and confusing it can be when you're trying to get healthier. The first step in any health goal should be to know what is going on with your body, to identify what your body actually needs. That's why I always say test, don't guess when it comes to your health. Whether you're trying to improve your energy, optimize nutrition, or reach fitness milestones, LabCorp On Demand offers health tests designed to give you insights that will help you make 2025 your best year yet. I love LabCorp On Demand because it's so convenient for my clients. You don't need a doctor's appointment. You can just walk in or make an appointment at one of LabCorp's 2,000 plus patient service centers nationwide. And then you get notified by email when your results are ready, which I've seen be ready as soon as the next day. The tests are incredibly thorough. They offer over 70 tests meant to test hormonal health, nutritional health, and so much more. LabCorp On Demand is truly the way of the future because you can actually find out what is going on in your body to identify the right care plan for you so that you're not spending all this time and money and energy on vitamins and workout plans and things that your body may not need or what might not be right for you. And you definitely won't have to deal with that frustrating feeling of having these symptoms and not knowing why. Get to know your body this year and what it actually needs to thrive. Everygirl podcast listeners can get 20% off your first order with code EVERYGIRL at ondemand.labcorp.com. That is 20% off your first order with code EVERYGIRL at ondemand.labcorp.com. Make this the year that you actually get to know your body. What career mistakes do you see people making most commonly?
Good question. I talk to a lot of people. I talk to thousands and thousands of people from all parts of the world in different stages of their careers in different industries. And the number one mistake that I see is people operating from a position of fear. They're afraid to leave their job. They're afraid to ask for a raise. They're afraid to go back to school. They're afraid to pivot to a different industry because they have a scarcity kind of mindset. They're afraid to lose. And I'm not shaming that because that's actually how humans have evolved to survive. That's why we're still alive as a human race is we want to preserve what we have. That's rational. Like don't get rid of that. It's just important to also operate from a position of hope and dreaming and inspiration. And I think that's actually something that is a little concerning to me with the younger generation is I think they've kind of lost the sense of like dreaming and hoping. And I really want to instill that back into people because it's so important to really dream and hope and be inspired for the rest of your life because that's just where a lot of happiness and fulfillment is going to come from. So yeah, people will stay in their jobs for way too long, or they won't ask for a raise or promotion for way too long. They won't try out their dream career. And I've talked to lots of people, especially later on in their careers, and I've never heard one person, I've never heard them regret trying something. People
Mm.
only regret not trying something. Like the amount of people I've talked to who have regretted not trying to work for themselves or start their own company or do their own thing it's astounding, and so you don't wanna get to the end of your life and regret not trying something. It's better to try it out, fail, and then be like, "Well, I tried," and move on with your life. Or
Totally.
succeed.
Yeah, or ideally succeed.
Yeah.
No, totally. It's so true because you might feel like, okay, I have failed this one thing and now it's pivot rather than feeling like I regret not doing it. What could have been? Like the what ifs are like the most awful question we could ask ourselves. What advice do you give people to be more fearless or to be more hopeful in their careers?
It's a very common question that I get. I just say most decisions in life are reversible or fixable. We think that these decisions are so huge, especially early on in our lives, in our 20s. And it's true. The decisions that you make in your 20s can really affect the rest of your life. That is absolutely true. There's a great book called The Defining Decade by Meg Jay that talks about the importance of maximizing your 20s. And I completely agree. At the same time, most decisions are reversible or fixable. And I think the big mistake that people make is staying stagnant. So they're afraid to do anything, or they're just not doing anything. They're just kind of sitting around, going to the job passively, living through their life, when really every day is an opportunity to gain more data. If you think that you might be interested in something, why not just take a Coursera class on it? Like, why not just LinkedIn DM somebody who works in that industry and just gather more data on it? The worst thing that you can do is just stay still and stagnant in what you're doing. So try it out. Doesn't work? You tried it, like content creation. I tell people all the time, they're like, Erin, how do I get started? And I'm like, just start. Literally just start posting videos. I looked like an idiot for 8 months. My videos were terrible. It was so embarrassing. I need to go back and delete all of them. But I keep them up because it reminds me of where I came from. And I just, yeah, just get started. I'm a very impulsive person, so it's easier for me to say, but that's my advice.
But I think that that's amazing advice because a lot of times we're programmed to think that if we feel uncomfortable, if we don't feel ready for something, if we don't feel like we're 100% confident, we don't do it. We wait until we feel ready, and nobody ever feels ready. And that's why people get to the end of their careers, feel such regret because they probably were spending their careers thinking, well, I'll be more ready next year. This is not a good time for that. So you get into that habit of thinking, I'm not ready or I'm uncomfortable or I'm scared. I'll do it when I feel fully confident. And I think if we switch that to, I may not feel ready, I may feel scared, I may feel uncomfortable. I'm going to do it anyway. I'm not going to look at that as a red light. I'm going to look at that as a green light. That's when
Yeah.
the changes in our career happen.
Start before you're ready. And there's also Tim Ferriss has a great TED talk on fear setting. So people do a lot of goal setting, obviously, and like we just talked about the 5-year plan. But fear setting is something that will blow your mind. It's you talk about worst case scenario. So if I quit my job to try and start my own company, what's the worst case scenario? And then you work backwards on how you would fix it if that happened. And it's like this great
Interesting.
exercise. Yes, I recommend anybody who's maybe on the cusp of doing something, go try that out because it can completely reframe your brain.
Oh my gosh, that's so fascinating. I only ever talk about like visualization of thinking of the best case scenario, like you're training yourself to experience what could happen. But that makes so much sense of when you fear set and you teach yourself, okay, this is worst case scenario. Here's how I handle it. You're like training your nervous system to go through the worst case scenario, what you're
Complete
so afraid of, and it's okay. And
and
it
I'd
it
still
was
be
fine.
alive. Yep.
Yes, I survived. It's okay. Something else that we get a lot of questions about are reviews, check-ins with your boss, manager, and I think this is also an important question when it comes to being more fearless because for sure something I've experienced, do I ask for what I need in my current role? And that's something a lot of people struggle with. So what tips do you have for someone who is needing to be more fearless or more hopeful in their career? Any tips that you have for someone wanting to change the role they have in the current role?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think something that I would stress and that a lot of people don't do is to remember that your manager or boss, whoever they are, no matter what your relationship with them is like, no matter how long you've worked there, they're a human. They're a person that has a dirty laundry at home. They probably have a complicated relationship with their parents. Maybe they feel like they don't have enough friends. Maybe they're insecure about how they look. They're just a human that was born on earth, not knowing anything, just like you. And they're probably looking for a new job or they're trying to gun for a promotion too. So, like, you're really not that different than who's ever managing you. You just have to work with them. So, I really encourage people to talk to your manager like a human, and if you're working underneath somebody who you feel like really just needs a lot of therapy, um, get away as quickly as possible. You can't
Mhm.
change people, you can't change company culture alone, and you can't change your boss's personality. You can work with them, you can have a conversation with them. Anyway, that's just my warning for that. But when it comes to having more confidence, something that I always say is it's not personal, it's just professional. So if you are going into a conversation with your boss where you're going to ask for a raise, This, I bet you a lot of money that this is not the first time your boss has been asked for a raise, and it's not the last time somebody's gonna ask them for a raise. This is a conversation that they are paid to have. This is part of their job description is having compensation negotiations with their subordinates. This is part of their job. So just remember that it's not personal, it's just professional. And your job is transactional. You don't owe anything to the company you work for besides what they are paying you to do. It's a transactional relationship. And if you do that job really, really well, you're not going to have any problems setting boundaries or asking for a raise because you're just going to say, this is a value that I'm providing. This is what the market's paying for that value. Can we find a way to collaborate and get closer to that number, whether it's salary compensation or flexible hours? Because you're just looking to make that transaction equal. And that's all it is. So I just recommend taking all the emotion out of it and just keeping it transactional, like you're negotiating a couch, on Facebook Marketplace. It's just about the money and the product. And just smile. Like, don't be so scared. Just smile, interject a little bit of humor. It's just a conversation that you're having with somebody who's also living their own complex life. And honestly, they just want you to be happy and stay in the job and keep doing a good job.
What about when you have reviews or check-ins with your boss, manager, mentor? I feel like it's so easy to get into the, like, "How's everything?" "I'm good. Everything's good." Like, it's so easy to get into that. So, what can we do to use our check-ins with our boss or manager more effectively to get even further in our careers?
If you want to be A plus rock star, like email them an outline beforehand when you go into the meeting. First thing is ask them like, what's on your mind? Like, let's get everything. Let's get that cognitive load cleared. Then you go through, your challenges for the week and how you overcame them. And you just want your boss to walk away thinking, wow, I'm so happy that they work here. They like are just dealing with it. Like they're just dealing with everything. And if you've ever managed people before, you know. So I actually recommend anybody manages somebody for a little bit because the second you have to manage somebody else, you finally get it. You're like, oh my gosh, this is what my manager wanted all along. They just wanted me to tell them I got it handled. At the same time, if you're always saying, I got it handled, everything's great, you're not going to move anywhere in your career because they're going to think this person's great where they are. Why would I want to move them? So you need to speak into existence what you want. You need to make it very clear. I'm not here to just do this and do that. This is what I want. And it's very reasonable, I think. So what can we do to get me there? And when do you think a reasonable time frame would be? I'm a junior publicist right now. I would like to eventually be a full-time publicist. Can you work with me on a roadmap so that I can get there in the next 12 to 48 months or whatever it is? Just make that really, really clear to them. Again, with a smile and with warmth and competence. Because otherwise, it's called performance punishment. You're just going to get punished for performing very well. And it's going to be hard for you to move up.
I love that you're, like, collaborating with your manager. I think a lot of people go in thinking, "I have to pitch myself a promotion," instead of just like, "What do I need to do?" Like, you tell me, "What does the next 6 months look like if that's where I wanna be?" And it's so much more helpful to view it as, like, a collaboration rather than, like, this big scary, like, I have to
A
pitch to
war.
them that I'm gonna right, exactly, that I'm, like, going against them. It's a collaboration together, and that is so much less scary and also probably so much more helpful because then they're telling you, "This is exactly what you need to do. This is exactly what the way that I view your roadmap."
And from the manager side, it's a lot less scary too. If an employee comes to you and they're like, "I'm not happy," it's like, "Oh, that's scary to hear as a person." But if you hear, "Hey, I'd love to be promoted in the next 12 months. Can you give me a realistic deadline?" That is like, "Okay, I can work with that."
That's so true. Managers are people too. One of the questions I get asked most often is how to reduce stress. Unsurprising, since I feel like we're living in a stress simulation sometimes. In addition to your typical mental health toolbox of things like therapy or meditation that work for you, I have another tip that may help to ease your stress physiologically at the root. I've been taking a natural, drug free supplement formulated by nutritional psychologists called Ashwamedh for a few months now, and I notice a significant difference in my stress levels. I've also noticed I'm sleeping a lot better and that my mind races less at night. I love and recommend Ashwamedh because of its ingredients and the fact that it was formulated by nutritional psychologists. So let me break it down for you since I always tell you to do your research when it comes to supplements. Ashwamedh contains ashwagandha, an adaptogenic herb that has been used in Ayurveda for thousands of years, And multiple studies have found that ashwagandha can significantly reduce stress levels. Ashwamag also contains two types of magnesium to help relax the body and mind. Low magnesium levels can also increase stress, by the way. There's L-theanine, which targets happy hormones to manage stress and improve mood. And then there's methylated vitamin B6. There was actually a recent study from 2022 that found that supplementing with vitamin B6 significantly reduced feelings of stress for participants. So, Ashwamag packs in all of these ingredients that are natural, good for you, and well researched, so you know that you are actually getting the bang for your buck that you want. I love that Ashwamag helps me feel calm, relaxed, and focused. Ashwamag is exclusively offering the Everygirl podcast listeners 20% off your monthly subscription for first time customers purchasing on the website. You just have to use code Everygirl20, terms apply. So just visit ashwamag.com now. That's ASHWAMAG.com to start your stress relief journey. I'm curious your thoughts on work life balance. It's obviously such a massive conversation right now, especially I feel like generation by generation, there's these different ideas. Someone was just on a podcast that recently went viral, basically being like, that's the problem with the younger generation is they're not willing to work really hard and put in the hours. And then you have other generations being like, no, no, we need a life too. So I'm curious your thoughts on the work life balance conversation and what that idea of work life balance even means.
Okay, so I've always had a qualm with the term work-life balance. And I think it's because it insinuates there's a separation between work and life when really life is happening and work is like this. Like it's congruent. Is that the word for I don't know. I don't remember math.
Sounds right
But
to me.
they're concurrent. They're concurrent. They're happening at
Current,
the same time.
yes.
That's the one. I think that was an algebra term. I like to use rather than work-life balance, I like to use personal professional balance. So when are you having like professional time and personal time? So I think that's what really people are referring to. And I think a lot of folks think I need to restrict work. I need to make work less time. And that may be true because a lot of jobs are trying to control your body and where you need to physically be and where your attention needs to be during the day. And I think that we're moving away from that, especially with the, new integrations of AI. Anyway, getting off track. But I think that something that folks should focus on more, and this is what I've seen as I've worked with folks, is adding in more personal into your life. Instead of trying to restrict the professional, add more personal. So at the end of the day, resist the urge to order takeout and watch Netflix. FaceTime a friend, or go out to trivia night, join a church or start volunteering, get a hobby. You need to add more personal things into your life every day. I have this thing called the 3-2-1 method where every day you list out like 3 things you need to do for your job. These are 3 things that you got to get done today at the very least. Then you got 2 things that are beneficial for your health. And they can be as small as like, I've lost today, or they can be as big as I did a 30-minute meditation or I ran 7 miles. And then one thing that's fun. You got to do a fun thing every single day. So many people are burnt out, and it's due to a lack of joy in your daily life. It's actually not due to a large amount of bad things in your life, it's due to a lack of joy. So I always tell people, like, if you're really focused about this professional, personal balance or work-life balance, whatever it is, don't just immediately blame your job. It's so easy. Everybody blames their job for everything. And I get it. There are a lot of people out there that are working 70 hours a week, 80 hours a week, and that's tough. But I strongly encourage you before immediately blaming your job for a lack of work life balance is to add in more personal things into your life and things that bring you joy on a daily basis and then reevaluate your job.
Oh my God. You are speaking my language, Erin. This is like my kind of stuff. When we look at work life balance, so many people think I need to set boundaries with work. I need to limit work. I shouldn't be working so much, which I think there's truth to that. Like it's a big pushback out of a generation of us that grew up being like, we're going to spend our nights working. We're working weekends. Like work is our whole life, like, so it's pushback from that, but that it's not always the problem. And I feel like the burnout conversation is so interesting. It's so cool what you bring up. Basically, the way that I view my work life balance, whatever you call it, is like there is no separation. Like my work is my life. And that to me is a good thing, not a bad thing. Like I look at when I have all my wellness routines in place, I look at that like I'm doing these things so I show up better for work. And also when I'm putting a lot of effort into work. It's so that I have happiness. Like, so I feel fulfilled and excited about life. And so work is not this thing that I have to do and have to put in my
Right.
time in, and I'm overwhelmed if there's too much. It's just like this seamless, natural part of my life. And I think the burnout conversation, looking at it that way of it's not always about work is taking away your joy. It's like you're just not putting in the time outside of work to invest in your joy and being more mindful of that
Right.
time.
And that's what I tell people. I notice this like trend when people, are like, okay, there's no such thing as dream jobs. I'm just going to get a job that's good enough and live my life when I'm not working. And it's like, that's great. Kudos to you. However, you are going to be working at least one third of your life. Like, that's just the reality, unless you have somebody else paying your bills. So, if you can make work something that you enjoy, your whole life is going to be more enjoyable. So, that's why I recommend that people do find jobs that make them feel fulfilled and happy because there's no escaping it. It's either you're going to spend a large chunk of your day doing something you don't like, or you can spend a large chunk of your day doing something that you do like most of the time. So yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I totally agree.
Sometimes it's all about mindset also. Like I know a lot of people feel like they don't have the flexibility or the freedom or the privilege to be able to pick their job. I'm sure you've heard of this study. I forget what it is, but there was a study of custodians, and basically half of the custodians were like, this is just what I do. I clock in, I clock out. I'm here to make money. And the other custodians, because it was custodians for a hospital, were like, I'm here to like help the patients, and my job is really important. And I'm not only just cleaning up the rooms, but I'm checking in to see like what kind of products bother the cancer patients. They had so much purpose and they had such higher levels of fulfillment. They had better health, they had better raises, like they had more promotions. So basically, just the point being, I think even just the mindset of how you look at your career life could be so beneficial in the way that you feel in your overall well being in life.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of, or I don't think this, I know this, that a lot of burnout is emotional burnout. It's actually not physical. You'd be surprised. Somebody who's super busy at work, working remote, especially from a laptop, is where I see a lot of burnout. And if I just tell
Mm.
them, hey, once a day for 5 minutes, do something you really enjoy, playing the guitar, playing a video game, calling a friend, suddenly the burnout tends to lift, but their workload didn't change. So, sometimes when it's just work in our life, I have this metaphor where it's like a sandwich. It's like if you just have work and that's just the tomato, if the tomato is good or bad, that means your whole lunch is either good or bad. But if you have other elements like cheese and bread and lettuce and all these other things, the quality of the tomato doesn't matter as much because you have all these other things going on in your life. So I'm like you, I preach a balanced life. And I think all of the elements, the individual ingredients being good, contributes to a better overall experience and a happier life.
I love the sandwich comparison. That's so good. I am curious why you see more burnout with people sitting in front of a screen. Is it like there's less interaction? You don't get like the water cooler? Like, what is it that makes burnout more intense for people working from home?
There's a writer and a professor thinker named Arthur Brooks, and he writes a lot about happiness. And one of the things that he's found, and thousands of other philosophers, researchers, scientists, anthropologists from all over the world have done a lot of research on this. When they study happiness, notice one thing, and it's that humans need to see physical products of their happiness. So I think what happens is like part of happiness is that you work for something and then you can see the benefit of it. So that's why a lot of people who are born into wealth and stuff aren't necessarily the most happy because they didn't feel like they worked for it and earned it. It's called earned success. And I think what happens a lot on computers is that we don't actually see the fruits of our labor. So I've noticed that people who work with their hands a lot tend to be a little bit happier, feel more fulfilled because they can see I built this bridge, I built this building. But when you're working on a laptop, you don't really see the fruits of your labor very often. You see a deck here, maybe a campaign there, but you're not necessarily seeing like the result. And anyway, this is a whole other conversation, but I think that that's detrimental to mental health is kind of click clacking away all day on your email and stuff and talking to people and everything's about these micro interactions, but you're not actually talking to anybody, but you're social all day. I don't think it's very good for the human psyche and that we were actually designed to work and to see the result of our work. So I always encourage people to find ways to visualize your work and to see the results and keep track of what you're doing.
What does it mean to like visualize your results? Like, what does that really look like?
Yeah, my recommendation for anybody working any job ever is to keep track of your success. It's really important to not let things go by. And I'm talking to myself here. I got Forbes and my husband wanted to pop champagne at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, no, I need to work. And I did. And I worked for the next 10 hours. It's important to celebrate your success. I recommend keeping a journal, like keeping a Google Doc and Google Drive, uploaded to the cloud so it's nice and safe, and keep all of your praise there. If a client praises you, if your boss says something, if a coworker says something, if you get a nice Yelp review, everything, just like compile it into that, good statistics, your KPIs, whatever it is, so that you can have it all in one place so that when you feel like a little bit beaten down, you can revisit that and be like, "Oh no, like I'm actually doing a lot of work here. Like this is incredible the impact that my job is having."
I have something on my that I call my affirmations folder where I like screenshot nice comments people leave, but like I never go back to it. I don't like really think that much. So you're inspiring me. I'm gonna like make a whole Google Doc and compile everything because it makes so much sense. And especially like how I feel like human nature works is we're so on to the next thing. Like we're especially in our society, I should say.
Especially
Maybe it's not even
Americans.
innate, especially Americans. Yes, it's like on to the next thing. What's the next goal? New Year's resolutions are a great example of that, where it's like, okay, sure, I accomplished all these things in 2024. What about 2025? What am I going to do this year? What's next? And we don't get that satisfaction of, wow, I created this. All my hard work went into this one thing. And now I just got to relish in this thing. And so creating that for yourself, even if your career or what you're working towards does not innately do that, I see how impactful that would be for your well-being at work,
Absolutely. It's absolutely crucial.
especially right now. It's such a crucial time for women to feel more in control of their finances. So whether it's how to get a raise or how to manage money differently or starting a side hustle, what are some little tips that you recommend to make more money by, let's say, the end of 2025?
I was speaking to somebody recently and they were talking about how they're just so bummed that their salary was like $61,000. And they were like, that's all I'm going to make this year, $61,000. And I said, no, 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 no. Mm-mm. That's the minimum you're going to make this year. Your salary is a minimum. That's just the base of what you're going to make. You can go out and get a side hustle, drive Uber, dog walk, ask for a raise, negotiate a bonus. That's what you're guaranteed to make. So I think just being creative about the ways that you can make money and then budgeting accordingly. Maybe you dog walk or you dog sit. That's something you already like doing, and then you take all that money from Rover or whatever it is, and you invest it. That's extra money. So I think just like having that again, that abundance mindset, I guess people call it, where you think about, this infinite amount of money out there. There are things that I can do. I'm going to go grab them. And even if that's just experimenting with maybe trying to start your own little side business or Etsy shop or content creation. Maybe it doesn't make money right away, but just diversifying yourself. People always say to me, like, how do you work for yourself? That's so unstable. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Nobody, nobody can fire me. Nobody can lay me off. I have the most stable job in the world. So I think it's just about reframing things and understanding like the world is your oyster. And I know you're busy and you have limited amount of time in the day. I know it might not be for everybody, but I encourage you, like, go out and get more money. Go get your bag.
Mm. I love that. And I love looking at your salary as just the base, as the
Mhm.
starting point. If someone does want to get a raise by the end of the year, are there certain things that they should start doing now to put in place so that they increase their chances of getting a certain raise or a different promotion or salary a year from now?
Oh, yeah. Start bringing the squeaky wheel for sure. People think that asking for a raise is like, okay, at my annual December performance meeting, I'll ask for a raise. It's like, no, 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 no. That's the finish line. You got to start planting that seed right now with those one on ones. And of course, like, I hate giving advice about this sometimes because it depends on your situation. Don't do what I'm saying to do if it's not appropriate for your situation. If you just started a job and you negotiated your salary, don't go do what I'm about to say. But if you've been there for a while and you really feel like you're underpaid, it's time to start planting that seed because the squeaky wheel gets the grease or whatever, the oil. I'm bad with phrases. You know what I mean, though? It's true. You go into these meetings and just say, I'd like to discuss an adjustment to my compensation. Never ask for a raise. Ask for an adjustment to your compensation because you're not asking for a raise, you're asking to be fairly compensated. And, when can we discuss that? What do you think would be reasonable? When can we have a real discussion about that and tell them, like, like, since we established my compensation, I've added this responsibility, I've learned this new skill, I contributed to the success on this project. Name 3 things that you did and have them think, we cannot lose this girl. We cannot lose her. She's going to find a job elsewhere. And that's what you're going to use as leverage to negotiate your raise. And who knows, they might give it to you right then. But you want to start planting that seed early.
That's a good tip because a lot of people are like, okay, it's year review time. Now's the time that I'm going to ask for a raise instead of it being this continuous conversation, which would probably be so much more effective. And kind of going back to the advice of how to use those check ins with your manager, of if you're setting it up like this is where I want to be, this is the salary that I believe I deserve for the work I'm putting in. If you can't get there right now, okay, what do I need to do? What more does the company need to make, or what more do I need to contribute to get there? And having that be a collaborative effort
Yeah.
then ensures that you get to where you want to be.
Yeah, and the reality is that companies do not want to lose good employees. If your manager loses you and you are an employee who is consistently providing value to the company, they get in huge trouble. So companies want you to feel like you're fairly compensated because they don't want you to be looking elsewhere. Any well-run company wants you to feel like you're being properly compensated. If you're in a culture and a system where you feel like or your experience is that they will not compensate you fairly despite asking and having the conversation over and over again, you need to bounce. Like they
Mhm.
will not change. You just need to get out of there.
That's a good point, and that's where it's finding that balance of, like, what you can ask for, and if it's just not fitting what is going to get you to where you wanna be in your career, then it's time to go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You just got to go to where you're valued.
Yeah. It's like the ex-boyfriend who's told you, "You know, I'm not able to give you what I want." Okay, then you gotta go.
You
That's
just
the
got
time you break up. Yeah.
that your lot exactly. It's dating and jobs are this exact same thing.
It's so true. Okay, Erin, we are gonna wrap up with some rapid fire questions.
All right.
Your number 1 career inspo, so someone whose career inspires you the most.
I'd say Reese Witherspoon. I just love how she's a multi hyphenate. She goes against what people tell her that she can do, and I love how she's really kind. I think that's something I
Mm.
really look up to in her.
I love that you added that because not to be on my own soapbox for a minute, but there's this idea, especially for women, that you like have to be really assertive and bossy and
Yeah.
type A and like be this certain personality in order to be successful. And if you're nice and you're kind and you're girly and you're feminine, you're going to get walked all over. And I love to see that that's changing. Like, I love Reese Witherspoon is the perfect example of that. She's like a badass, but she is so nice.
Yeah, and she seems to be a good friend and a good mom. I don't know, she seems really well-rounded.
Next question, your favorite song to listen to when you want to tap into some confidence?
Right now, I'd say it's Red Wine Supernova by Chapel Roan, but
I
I got a
mean,
lot. I got a playlist.
oh, you have a playlist? Have you ever shared your confidence playlist?
This is something that I'm working on. I'm working on a pre-job interview, like, confidence boost playlist, and I'm taking recommendations. So anybody DM me your recommendations.
That's gonna play for me every morning. Whenever you release this playlist, it's gonna be my morning, my wake up every morning.
Same.
Fill in the blank. If everyone had this one habit, it would change their life.
Naming 3 things that you're grateful for every single morning before you get out of bed.
I love that. Do you do that every single morning?
I try. I feel like I go through phases where I'm really good about it, and then I
Mm.
kinda drop off, but that's okay. It's to get back into it, and it's really
Yeah.
powerful.
Best advice you've ever received?
Oh gosh, my dad had a lot of, like, catchphrases growing up, and one of them was to be intentional and persist variously, which is kind of a weird phrase, but be
Ooh.
intentional about the things that you want, speak it into existence, tell people what you want, and then persist variously. So don't let anybody tell you no.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I feel like that would be good, like, tattoo or, like, a sign to put up in your kitchen or something. It's,
Yeah,
like,
I think in
very
college I had it.
powerful. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that, though. That's such good advice. Last question for you, Erin. A book that changed your life?
Okay, I think it's a tie between Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, really, really good for negotiation advice, and Bossy Pants by Tina Fey. I read it when I was in high school, I guess, and that just it radicalized me. I just loved reading about such a powerful woman, but also a funny woman. And the idea that
Mhm.
funny women can be so successful was really inspiring to me.
That's been on my reading list for years. I love the concept, like, that you can be a badass and be anything else that you wanna be, I think is so important for women to hear.
Yeah.
What's your number 1, like, takeaway from the negotiation book?
So Chris Voss, the author, was an FBI negotiator, hostage negotiator. And so he had to, for his job and his career, negotiate in a way where he couldn't split the difference. He had to get everything that he wanted with very little leverage. And so he just developed negotiation techniques that are extremely powerful based in psychology. And it's funny, when I talk about these techniques as a woman, people usually say, oh, that's so manipulative. But when a guy does it, it's, oh, you're so strategic. So
Classic.
if you're a woman reading that book, people might accuse you of being manipulative when really you're just being strategic.
Tale as old as time, huh?
Yeah.
That's really fascinating, though. Oh my gosh. Like, understand the psychology would be
Oh,
really cool.
fascinating.
Erin, where can everybody find you? I'm sure they already know you, but if they don't, where can they get more Erin?
Oh gosh, more Erin. Instagram is at Advice with Erin, same as YouTube, TikTok. My website's advicewitherin.com. You can take the quiz/quiz to take the free career quiz. And other than that, yeah, I have a newsletter, hyperhelpful.com. I send out one piece of super helpful advice every week, and people have been really liking it. It's brand new. And other than that, yeah, you can catch me on the streets of New York. Come up and say hi. I'll blush.
Erin, give the best advice. Thank you so much for sharing it today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.